So I'm excited to talk about my new book called Accelerating India's Development, a state-led roadmap for effective governance. So this is a book I've been working on for nearly 5 years. It's a major 800-page book that reviewers have called a magnum opus. It basically reflects a synthesis of over 20 to 25 years of my research, as well as engagement with policymakers, with practitioners, my fieldwork. There's really two reasons for writing the book. The first is that when you finished over 20 years of work, you see that you learn so much across your individual papers that don't make it into individual papers, right? So there's so many dots to connect across that body of work. And the second reason is really that there's a really important core message, okay? And the core message of the book, it reflects a unifying pattern in the data I've seen across 20 years of my work in education, in health, in welfare programs, and early childhood development. And that basic insight is the following, okay? Which is most of our policy debates about how India should develop focus on what sectors should the government prioritize, okay? Should they be prioritizing infrastructure? Should they be prioritizing health? Should they be prioritizing education? And so most of these policy debates focus at the level of budget allocation, okay? Which sectors should we be allocating money to? Whereas a key insight of all of my work is that the real kind of action is not at the level of budget allocation, but in the quality of governance and how that allocation translates into impact. So the pattern of evidence we see in study after study after study is that the return on investment of improving governance and state capacity is often 10 times more than simply spending more money in a business as usual top line way, okay? You cannot accelerate India's development without building a more effective Indian state. What the book does is it highlights this big picture fact, but then its intellectual value add is really getting into the black box of the machinery of the government and saying, let's think about what are the core incentives and constraints of the two key actors of the government, who are the politicians and the bureaucrats. A lot of the discourse in India often tries to find easy kind of scapegoats, right? You can blame the politicians, you can blame the bureaucrats. And a key point of departure of the book is to say that you've got a lot of good motivated people, but who are functioning in systems that often create perverse incentives, okay? So it's less about people and more about systems, and how do you build systemic incentives so that the right thing happens.